You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, you've got the privilege of talking to Rick today. Rick is an individual that reached out to me a while back about some things he's experienced at Bear Brook State Park over near Allenstown, New Hampshire, which has come up a few times on the show. So excited to talk to Rick today. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Is there anything else that you would like the listeners to know about yourself before we start chatting today?
So, well, let me say this. So, it's not every time I go to Bear Brook or go for a hike that I experience something. And this is like how can I say this? You can go out there for 100 times and never see anything or feel anything, but you can go out there once and see something. The phenomena is really strange, because I know there's some people who be like, I've been hiking here for 37 years and I never saw anything. I've never heard anything. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But besides that, no. I can start with my first couple of experiences. So Bear Brook it's about 10,000 acres. It is a state park. It does span a couple of towns in New Hampshire. I think the biggest part is over in Allenstown, but there's also some more remote areas around Candia. I've never seen, usually the part that I go to, you don't really see a whole lot of people out there, even during hunting season. So it is pretty remote. There has been that famous case, which I believe that they finally solved, where they found the bodies in the barrels. So the place where I like to hike, it's probably maybe a few miles away from there. But the part that I go to, it's not well traveled at all. It's actually pretty dead. And I think it's probably one of the creepiest parts, especially when it starts to get dark. Yeah, you barely see people out there. Rarely. When it comes to Bigfoot or anything, I've never seen Bigfoot at all. And I don't know why. There have been times when I've been out there where I was like, oh, he's definitely going to show up now, but he never did. But so I'll start with your first one. This was back it was October of 2022. I was actually out there with my brother, and we were hiking up this trail. So we went off trail a little bit, and we went to this it's like a little hill, and there's a rock outcropping at the top. And what we did is we set up a little fire inside of a fire pit, and we were just hanging out, drinking and just kind of enjoying the woods. And I remember this night, the wind was just, it was howling like Satan out there. It sounded like the devil, And it started to get dark, and it was around, I want to say around 7 p.m., where there was this moment where you just feel like the wind just completely died down, and then it switched direction and it started going the other way. And then I start to get this weird feeling, and then my brother starts getting it too. I was like, man, do you feel something weird? He's like, yeah, I definitely feel something weird. There's something you just start getting scared, out of nowhere, And so we're packing everything up, And I didn't tell my brother about this at the time, but from this like rock outcropping, I like looked down, and it had to be about, maybe like 100 yards or so in front of me. The wind had died down at this point for a little bit, and I can see like a tree just like shaking, like this, just one little tree. You know, every other tree is calm, but this one is sitting there like shaking. So I was like, man, what was that? Like, what's going on? So I start packing everything up like a lot faster. My brother's like, hey, what's going on? I was like, no, let's just get out of here because it's going to get dark, and I don't want to get lost. And then the wind picks up again, and now with the wind picking up, I can hear what sounds like a truck, man, just like tearing through the woods and using the wind, right? The wind howling and the leaves rustling as a cover, right, for what it's doing. But I can, differentiate the wind, and I just start hearing trees falling like little saplings. And at this point, where they're trying to put the fire out, and I was like, we have to get out of here quick. So we grabbed our stuff, and then we like left, and we actually got like lost for a good while, and but finally we made it out. There was another time there, and this was a couple months later. I was out there alone, so I had set up like a hammock, and with my job, so like what I do for work, like half of my job is remote work. So at times, I would take my laptop and I would just go out to the woods and I would just sit there like work. And at Bear Brook, it's good, especially at this place where the service it's not bad at all. So you can actually hotspot off your phone, and you can send emails, and so I was just sitting up there in the hammock doing that, and you can hear the birds, the birds singing and everything, and all of a sudden it's just quiet, and then you get that weird feeling again. It was three different sounds. So the first sound that I heard sounded like somebody took sheet metal, like a plate of sheet metal, and they're like wiggling it around. And if you know that sound that like sheet metal makes, that like wobbling sound, I started hearing that, and then I started hearing like what sounded like a humongous like metal door opening up, and I was like, what is that? So I was thinking, I was like, oh, there's like a clearing over there. I wonder if there's some lumberjacks out there, and they're cutting down like wood. They'll just clear like entire areas of the forest. When they find patches, I forget what it is. It's some type of invasive species. I think it's red oak, or it's a bug that attacks red oak. So if they find it, they'll clear it, right? So I was thinking it was that. So I went out there and I pack up my stuff and I just start walking towards it. And I get to this clearing, and there's absolutely nobody out there. There's nothing. The logging road that goes in is all overgrown. So then I go back, and when I go back, the sound like starts like persisting, and this time it's like it starts getting a little bit louder, and I go on my phone, and I'm like, it was like strange metal sounds in the woods, and I was like, and I couldn't find like an explanation for it, and again, you start hearing something way off, like in the distance, and it sounds like it's running towards you, and at this point again, I get super scared, and like my like stomach just like turns, and I'm just scrambling to pack everything, and I just like darted out of there like as fast as I could. I almost fell on my face a few times, and I don't know why, but I was panicking so much, and I was trying to find the trail, and I was actually like walking off trail, but like parallel to the trail. But I was freaking out so much, wanting to get out of there, that I didn't see it. But luckily, I made it out that time. And people are like, oh, you'll hear some people say like, yeah, I'll never be back to the woods again. I'm like, I was like, I like going there. Yeah, it can be pretty scary sometimes, especially when it starts to get dark. But I had no problem with that. But then again, if I actually saw like a Bigfoot or something, then I'd probably feel a little different. But the other time, and I think this was early, like last year, I was with a friend of mine, and we were out there looking for chaga mushrooms. They're those big, almost looks like wood, but they grow on birch trees, right? So we go out there sometimes, and we'll just look for it. And there's actually quite a bit out there. I mean, we found like some pretty big chunks, and we were off trail, and we're just getting this like huge chunk of like chaga mushroom off of this tree. And it was, so this was like, I think this was probably around February, like late February. I'm just like taking this thing of like chaga off, putting it in my bag, and I look. My friend he's a little bit ahead of me walking around, and when I look to my left, I see like this like misty, smoky, like picture like a person, like a human, like a human, form and outline, like a body, but it's completely made of like smoke, like vapor. I look over and I can see this thing just like walking, and it's walking like sideways, right? So I can see like its right leg and its right arm is actually swinging as if somebody's walking. And then I just watch it like walking, and then it walks a little more, and then it just like disappears, like the smoke just like dissipated. And I'm just sitting there like, did I just see that? I was like, I stopped, and I'm just thinking, like, no, there's no way, like, I just saw that, like, at all, and I'm kind of like freaking out at this point. So I go and I tell a friend of mine, and he's like, and I asked him, I was like, hey, did you see that like smoky thing walking around? He's like, no. I was like, oh, it was just like right there. He's like, no, I didn't see it at all. So we both agreed that it was time to like get out of there, and we did. And I always wondered, like, I was like, I had heard that, like of like certain types of. I actually did some research on Bear Brook, and there is some like a history. It's not very prevalent, but there have been people there that have seen like strange things, like lights in the woods, like Bigfoot. Also, like voices. The voices I've never heard out there, but I was always wondering like what exactly is that could like cause that sort of thing. But so I did spend a couple of months without going back there because I saw this like smoky person. And then I started going back. It was, I want to say, around the fall of last year, and I went months and months and months without seeing anything there. And at one point, I was going out there 3 or 4 times a week just for like a short hike, just to kind of just enjoy the woods, and it's quiet out there, so you can go out there and you can think, you can read a book, you can do look for mushrooms. I haven't hunted out there yet, but maybe I will soon. So it was the last two experiences I had there were a couple months ago. No, not months ago. It was a couple of weeks ago. I went out to the same spot. Oh, wait. No, I actually missed one. So it was August of last year. I was with this friend of mine, and we were both sitting down, and we're just talking, smoking cigars, and we started talking about the I forget the context of the conversation, but we were talking about Canaanite gods. So I mentioned Baal of the Canaanites, right? And this is when it starts to get dark, and we start talking about Baal, and I get the goosebumps just talking about it. And I just started getting like this weird feeling, like a really, really weird feeling. He's like, man, yeah, I got this weird feeling too. And out of nowhere, we just hear, and it was like pretty close to us, we hear what sounds like somebody imitating it almost sounded like a bear cub calling out for its mother, but it was pretty loud, and it did it about 2 times, and we're like, what is that, and both of us got up. I have a pretty powerful flashlight, and it wasn't seconds after that we both get up, and I just shine this flashlight all over this area, and there's absolutely nothing there, like nothing. And whatever was making that sounded really big. So, and I was thinking like, that couldn't have been a bear cub, because as soon as we got up to go towards it, you would have heard the thing, and you can't. It's almost impossible. It really is hard to like sneak up on to go out like sneaking out there because of all the leaves. Like you can't really be quiet. Like we'll hear it coming. And so like I was thinking like, okay, so that was not a bear cub. That was definitely somebody imitating a bear cub. But how on earth did this person get so close to us like that without us seeing it, hearing it, and in the pitch black darkness with no flashlight whatsoever? So we would have seen it coming. And we looked and like searched like the area, and like nothing, and it's just that feeling that you get, like we packed up our stuff and just got out of there. And so then after that, I was thinking to myself, I was like, this thing does not like the Bible, right? So I was like, okay. So I went there a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I'm gonna poke and prod like whatever's out here. And then I start reading something like on my phone out of the Bible, right? And the birds are going off and everything, and I'm reading it, and all of a sudden everything just goes quiet. I hear behind me sounded like a wild boar, and I was like, man, and it was like made this like grunting sound, and I thought, hey, it's like, I was like, there's no wild boars here. So I looked back thinking that I was going to see like a male bear just kind of walking towards me, trying to be curious. And when I look back, there was nothing there at all. And then up towards the trail, I heard what sounded like people walking, and like talking. I don't know if if you've ever heard like people talking from like far away, but you can't really make out what they're saying. That's what it sounded like. But I could hear them walking through the woods and like breaking branches. And that's when I heard like my first two like tree knocks. And it was as loud as day, just, starts like knocking. And then you can hear it like walking a little bit. And then I get up and I rush over there. Like I literally rushed over there. I was like, I want to see like what's doing this. And there was absolutely nothing. And there was no way, that this thing could have gotten away like so fast. So whatever is out there is just like likes to mess with me, I guess. And this will be the last time I went, a couple weeks ago as well. Maybe I think it was early August. I'm like walking up the trail, right? And I just feel like something telling me like, hey, turn around. Don't go up there, turn around. And I was like, whatever. I just ignored it. And, and it's kind of hard to explain, but I just kept walking. And once I got like halfway, not halfway, but like a quarter way up the trail, it's like somebody, I don't know if you've ever done like an eye exam, and they, the optometrist, he puts that big like, thing in front of your face, and then he switches the, these like lenses, and he just goes through like different settings to find the right one that you can actually see through. And what it looked like, it's like somebody changed the filter, like the light filter in front of me, and it just like changed. And so I was like, oh, that's like really weird. And at that moment, it felt like I was somewhere else. Like I didn't recognize where I was at all. Like it had completely like disoriented me, And this was like the weirdest part. It's like I'm looking around. It's like, okay, I kind of recognize where I am, but then like it was just different, like a different place. Almost, it kind of looked like it, but it was just different. And I still didn't listen, right, to this feeling. So I kept going, kept walking, and then I finally stopped. And then off to my right, sounded like it was probably like maybe like 50 feet off trail. I heard what sounded like a group of people speaking in some like foreign language. I was like, so I listened. I was like, is that like Spanish? But then like I started to kind of walk closer to it, and I couldn't quite make out what they were saying, but it was almost like something was trying to draw me in there to to get closer. And so then I go back. I just walk. I take a couple steps back, and I'm like, and I say to myself, like, yeah, I really have to like get out of here. Like this is super weird. Like the, it almost feels like, like I'm in a completely like different place. And I just start walking back. I just walked back to the car, and I was stuck with like this feeling like all day, like, man, like where, like what happened, and I have gone back there since, but I don't know, man. I think I just got to listen to my gut more. And my gut is telling me now, it's like, don't go out there by yourself, So I don't know, man. I think that place in particularly, where I go, you do have that these like murders that happen. That's just north of that. And there have been a couple of murders like around that area, not exactly in it, but like around it. And if you go to the New Hampshire State Police unsolved homicides, and it gives you a map, and you zoom into where like Bear Brook is, you'll see a couple of murders that have happened around that area. I mean, not too far away from there. There's this, I think it's called New Boston Road. There were two girls that were found murdered there, and in the 70s, and that case has been unsolved ever since. There was another guy that was found murdered there in the 90s. Then you have the bodies in the barrel, and just south of that, there was like another one as well. So I'm just thinking, like, man, like, you know, there's just some sort of like darkness, some sort of like dark energy here that really manifests itself when it starts to get, when it's like nighttime, or when you're just like by yourself. So I have like no idea, you know. I'm always curious, and I'm always looking to see if there's other people that have had like similar experiences. And I have found a few things on like Reddit where people say like, oh yeah, you know, just they describe the same things that I felt. But that being said, I mean, it's not going to stop me from going back there. But I have this like rule now where if it starts to get dark, once it starts to get dark, I am out of there. Like, I'm not going to stick around anymore. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wow, Rick. Oh yeah, that voice is there inside of us for a reason, man. That is intense. I had no idea about the history of that park. Now,
yeah,
these incidents that you're bringing up, like these murders, so are these like missing 411, or these are actual like people are being found dead?
No, these are like actual like murders.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't think there has been. Yeah, if you look up the Bear Brook murders, you'll see it. It was like a couple bodies. They found the bodies back in the 80s, and they had a hard time identifying them. But that, like, where the bodies were found, that's not in the park. It was found like outside of a trailer park, which like borders Bear Brook. And I think that's like private property. So if anybody's thinking about going out there, I'd be careful.
Yeah, good call. I would say let's not mess with that at all, for sure. I mean, you had some really interesting experiences happen, Rick, over the years. The one that was really interesting to me was how you started reading the Bible and everything started getting quiet and things started ramping up. Now, did you randomly pick a passage, or did you have one in mind that you turned to and started reading?
No, so I just randomly pick a passage. I think it was I believe it was 1 Kings 19, when the prophet Elijah, he's running away from Jezebel, who's trying to kill him, and he goes up to the mountain. But yeah, I think whatever's out there does not like to hear the Bible at all.
Which is interesting, because in 1 Kings 18, that's when the prophets of Baal were defeated by Elijah on Mount Carmel, right? So I don't know if you been talking about that before when you were talking about Baal earlier then?
So yeah, I believe we were. So that was at a different time. We were talking about, I think it was, yeah, we might have been talking about Jezebel, which is weird, you know, and then I start reading it, and then, you know, at a different time I start reading about Elijah. So maybe, yeah, that could have been what triggered it.
You know, there's so much going on in this world. We have no idea what is, well, we know it's behind the scenes. There's some intense spiritual warfare going on, but we usually cannot see it, right? And it is very interesting that you reading that passage, I mean, some of that stuff blatantly sounds like Bigfoot activity. I mean, especially the tree knocks. But when you had the group of people talking, did it sound like it was like a murmuring or mumbling at all?
It sounded like no, it didn't sound like murmuring or mumbling. It just sounded like people talking, but they were just like far away, and you can hear the sounds, but you can't make out what they're saying.
Gotcha.
You know?
When everything went quiet, did were your ears affected in any weird way physically?
So no, like it's weird because it goes quiet and it almost sounds like you can hear like this buzz, like this beep, but it's like really faint. So I just think to myself like, did I really hear like that beeping sound or what? It's weird, but it can be like very disorienting in a way, you know. Yeah, I just say don't like trust your gut out there. I'm kind of, you know, really curious, and like I'll try to like walk towards it to see like what's going on, but don't do that, you know. And I had to like change, you know, the way I approach it now. But yeah, in terms of that, it's weird, man. Like it'll go dead quiet, and it's just kind of like a faint like that, like almost like I have a tinnitus too, right? So, sometimes my ears will ring, and it sounds like that, like the ringing in the ears, but it's very very faint. Which I'm thinking like I was like, you know, it's weird, man. It's not something pleasant for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I know exactly what you're talking about when you refer to what that sounds like. So not so much like a humming, but more like a tinnitus type sound. Sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it could be a coincidence too that at that moment when everything went quiet, my ears were ringing because of tinnitus. So I'm not sure if that, you know.
The other really interesting, and this was just early August of this year. I mean, the way that you experienced when you were walking up that trail, I mean, that sounds really close to when people are talking like they've gone through some kind of portal or things like that.
Yeah. That was weird, man. It's like put like grab like it's hard for me to explain. I think the best way to explain is like grab some like sunglasses, put them on a sunny day, right, and then just like lift them up and put them back on, like, you know, against your eyes. Like that's like what happened, you know. It was like a change, almost like you're like I don't think I walked into like some other dimension, but it like see I've been walking down the same trail for years, right, and then this happens, this change in like the light filter, and I look around and I didn't recognize the place at all. It felt like it was completely like somewhere completely different, you know. That was scary. Like that almost made me not want to go back there again.
I absolutely get that, and it sounds like you know, when you do have that gut reaction where you're like, okay, maybe not this place today. You are following that from here on out, which is great. So are you a religious person then, or?
Yeah. I'm
okay.
a Christian.
Oh, that's awesome.
Evangelical. Yeah.
Okay. Have you had things like that happen when you've read the Bible other times, or is that the only time that's happened where you had that weird reaction?
No. So, man, you want to talk about like paranormal stuff throughout my life? There was once, and this happened in my early 20s. I was asleep in my bedroom, and I hear something unlock the door, and they walk in, And what walked in was this like giant, probably like a 7 foot tall, like a praying mantis with a human type, like the head was kind of human shaped. And I remember this day, man, like the antennas, it had two antennas on top of its head, and the antennas were kind of like, they were like moving around in like circles. It had its hands up to its chest like a praying mantis, and it just kept on floating towards me. And when it was doing that, there was a buzzing, like a buzzing sound right in the middle of my forehead. And it was just like, you know, just like this weird buzz. And I couldn't move. I couldn't say anything. And all of a sudden, I'm able to let out like a, you know, when you're able to move and say something, it went away completely. And yeah. Occasionally, I'll get things like that. If I go on like a fast, right? And I'm not like a super Christian or anything, man. Like, you know, I still have problems. You know, I swear sometimes. I still like to drink some beer. You know,
no one is.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
like everyone struggles with that. I get you, dude. Yeah.
You know, like man, I'm not perfect at all, but there are times in my life, especially like if I were to fast for like 3 or 4 days and then go out to like Bear Brook, man, I swear, I think every single paranormal thing would probably just jump out of the trees at me. And I think that would go for anybody, really. But yeah, man.
Have you tried that where you fasted for a few days and then you've gone out there?
I haven't, no. But maybe I should. But
I'm not saying you should. I mean, that's your call, but right.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to go very far because you know, if you're fasting for a couple of days and then you're going to go on a hike, I mean, you're going to be like dead pretty much. But no, I have not tried that, but maybe I should. One thing I was thinking about doing is going out there at like 5 or 6 a.m. and going up to like the top of like a hill or something to pray. But I have not done that yet. And I'm like, should I do that? You know, because when it's dark out there, it's just super creepy, man. It's just eerie. I mean, there were times when I'm like walking through there, like, and it's like nighttime. There's like fog and mist, like on the ground, so it looks like a horror movie, you know. And it's just creepy. It really, really is just really scary out there at night. I think more so than any other woods anywhere else that I'm aware of.
I mean, the great thing is that, you know, so if you're a Christian, you do have, you know, the armor of God for you, and then so you are protected, right? Now that you still got to be careful where places you go, because you can run into stuff that can be very, you know, dangerous physically and spiritually for sure. But we do have that power of the Holy Spirit, which, you know, that's interesting because it's like, maybe it's a thing where, you know, that gut feeling, you know, as Christians we have, usually that's the Holy Spirit being like, hey, easy, buddy,
exactly.
Be careful, dude. But man, that really puts a whole different twist on that area. And I think it's not just that area. I mean, there's stuff like this, you know, we know all over the world, all over the US, and maybe some places more prevalent than others, right? But Rick, this has been I'll tell you, I got a little nervous when I saw your summary and you were talking about Canaanite gods, and I was like, I don't know where this is going to go, but it went somewhere different. So it's very cool. But so you're planning on going back out, and I'd say, yeah, dude. I mean, it'd be really interesting to see, you know, what happens if you did, you know, pray out there or read the Bible again, and, you know, definitely, you know, let me know what What happens if you do decide to go out there again?
Yeah, I'll definitely try it. Like at least at some point, And I don't know, man. There is something out there. I don't know what it is, but there's something out there that is just like nefarious. And one thing that I would want to like know, right, or talk to is the people. I mean, there's people that live around there, right? I would love to hear from somebody that lives like around the park, just to see if they've ever had anything like that. Yeah, but I'm always looking for like houses for sale around there. I was like, that would be cool. But yeah, I'm always like wondering. I've ran into very, very few people out there in the Candia section,
Mm-hmm.
and I've just never had the courage to like ask them, "Hey, have you seen anything out here?" But maybe next time I will. And maybe there's
It would be interesting to see if you did, because I know I've talked to a few other people about this park back. It was like 806 and 808 of the podcast. And they are like, yeah, there's certain areas of this park or maybe on the borders where, people have like the signs up, like the Bigfoot signs or like the Bigfoot silhouettes. And I mean, you don't have those up for no reason, right? Like you got to have, there's got to be some reason you have those up. So yeah, if people are listening from this area, and if you've experienced stuff, you live around there, or if you just experience stuff, feel free to reach out. You can send an email to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. But it is one of those places where it's come up a few times on the show, which is kind of weird for New England, to be honest.
That's true, man. I honestly, I mean, when you hear about like Bigfoot, it's either like down south or it's like out west somewhere. Mm-hmm. And New England is always really quiet, but for some reason this part, and then you had that guy that came on that saw the Bigfoot in over at Stevens Hill Road in Nottingham.
Yeah. Yep.
And I have a buddy that lives up in that area now. There's just something there, man. And I'll tell you, if you have the courage, go out to Bear Brook, go out to Bear Brook at Mount Hall or Hall Mountain. Go out to Hall Mountain at night, and just see, like, if you feel like something, because I know there's people a lot braver than I am out there. And if I happen to be out there and I see someone out there, hey, I'm going to ask you, and maybe we can do it together, because I don't want to do it by myself.
There you go. Did one of your specific incidents happen at Hall Mountain then? Yeah.
So everything that I experienced was at Hall Mountain. Okay. Everything. I wasn't going to say where it was at, but I was like, you know what, man? I'll just say it, because but what I guess what would suck now, right, is if you go out there and there's people like hunting for Bigfoot, but I don't think so. Well, I pretty much gave it away anyways by saying Candia, so
right.
But it's true. Yeah, it's Hall Mountain. Then again, like, I'm not saying you're going to go out there and see something, right? You may go out there a million times and never see or experience anything. This is just what I've seen and what I've experienced. But yeah, I'd say go out there at night and you'll see how creepy it gets. And it changes, man. In the daytime, it's perfectly normal, perfectly nice. When it starts to getting it like at dusk, still nothing. But once it gets dark, wham, like it feels like the devil is roaming around out there.
Oh, I get it. Yeah. It's the same thing happens out in Oregon when, it gets really quiet or the dusk. Totally get that. But man, Rick, what a fascinating set of accounts that you have. Thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to talk. It took us a few times, but we got it to work out, and definitely keep me in the loop if anything happens in the future in this area. But it's been a pleasure to talk to you today, and just want to make sure that you were able to share everything that you came to the show to share today.
All right. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so I had a Type B encounter at Red River Gorge, eastern Kentucky. Have you ever heard of that place?
Yeah, that's a pretty active area. Yep.
Yeah, it was back in 2017. I'm a pretty avid hiker, so I was pretty familiar with the area, and I took a friend of mine down there. And it's really weird because I found out this guy was from Florida and he never went camping before in his life. And I found that out on the way there, so that changed the course of the conversation on the way there. And so I felt led to give him some of the do's and the don'ts of camping. And since I was familiar with that area, it's got a really weird spiritual feel to it, but it also has a lot of, encounters. So long story short, I kind of warned this guy because he was like a macho man. And I just was letting him know, like, I believe in Bigfoot. It's really crazy that this happened. I really feel like I kind of saved this guy's life. I know that sounds like far-fetched, but I really think that it had an impact with how the night went. But I, long story short, told him I believed in this stuff, and I had been listening to the Sasquatch Chronicles podcast for a short time. And then I always grew up with a couple stories in my family. So I just always knew about them existing. So I kind of just warned him about, hey, if anything messes with us at our tent, just don't go out of the tent. Like, that was kind of like my main. And of course, he was kind of like laughing it off, which was to be expected. But so we got there, and it was like maybe 6 or 7. We didn't have a lot of time to get firewood, so I just told him to help me get some firewood, and he kept bringing back these like big branches with leaves on them, and it was just not firewood. So I was like, oh no. And then I remember, like, we were on the end of this ridge. It was a chimney top. So Chimney Top is like a 5-mile road or so, and it's a gravel road. And it pretty much takes you out on this ridge. And so we were at the very end of it. And it used to be where I'd go camping every time, but now I go. And it's closed like half the year. I wonder why. So I just remember when he's gathering this firewood, I remember just the hair on the back of my neck standing up. And it's like dusk at this point, we're fervently collecting firewood so that we have some for the night. But I remember feeling watched, and so I just kind of scanned the area, and a little bit longer than what I usually would. I just felt a really weird feeling, and so I just kind of noted that and went on. And we made some really good food. We made I made camp packs, so like meat, sausage, onions, carrots, potatoes, garlic, very, very many smells going on. So, and then we actually had there was 2 other campsites right before ours, but they were spread out, so we could barely hear the people, but they were like, I think they were on shrooms because they were like screaming and hollering and like just very happy. So it wasn't really bothering us, but we could hear them every once in a while. So just thought I'd tell you for later.
Absolutely.
And so we eat the food. We get as much firewood as we can, which isn't a lot. And we read a little bit of the word. We were church friends, so we just read like a chapter of the Bible. And then we were just buddies, just going camping. And so we go lay down. I mean, we get in the tent, and I forgot to tell you, I had a machete, and he didn't know, anything about machete. So he got another machete at the gas station, and I was like, okay, well, he said it was dull. So I was like, all right, bud. I was like, it's gonna be the same as mine but shiny. So he figured that out. He was like, yeah, you're right. I was like, I told you, just save your money, but it's okay because then we both had machetes. So we're just laying there, and like not even 10 minutes goes by, I feel like, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I forgot to mention, sorry. There was a hiker that came up to us with a really bright LED light on his head, and he asked for directions, and so I kind of pointed him where to go, and I told him to be careful because we're on a ridge, you know, and there's cliffs all around us, essentially. I was like, and if you need to come back, you can come back here, you know, so that'll be important for later. And so we lay down, and we just felt like we were being stalked, like after just like 10 minutes of laying down. And I don't know how to describe the feeling, but it's like we knew we couldn't talk, and we just laid there, and then it got to where we felt like we couldn't breathe. And I just remember whispering to him and saying, if you hear anything, tap me, and if I hear anything, I'll tap you. He understood what I said. I was just whispering to him, essentially. And I don't really know how much time went by. It felt like forever. And we're just gripping these machetes and just laying there. And the fire starts to go out. I remember that. It starts to get like just darker and darker. And I'm like, great, that's like the last thing that I need. And because, you know, that keeps the larger animals away and stuff. And we had cooked food. And then, you know, we have these, you know, people camping next to us that are making a bunch of noise. And so maybe they drew something in. But I just remember getting this feeling like, I really am so glad that I warned this guy. You know, he was from Florida. He'd never been camping before in his life. And it just so happened that I told him about all this on the way. So we're laying there. I've only told this story like 2 or 3 times. And I'm just so glad that I have someone with me at this point. I just remember thinking, like, thank God someone's with me so that I didn't feel crazy later. And so we're hearing nothing. We still feel stalked. And then I'm trying to like visualize what happens in my head. I feel like that's normal, but I'm a very visual person. So I'm trying to figure out where this noise comes from. But it's essentially like what I heard was like branches moving out of the way. It was like, shh, and then just a giant boom, like a thump. Like the first thing that popped in my head was just, it's Godzilla. Like I'm laying there on the ground in a tent. And it just shakes us. It shook everything. And when it happened, I thought that something was like moving a bush or something, and then it like jumped. But it took me a year or two, and I figured out, I think it was in a tree, and it like jumped out of the tree. And that would explain if I felt something looking at me. When I looked out, I didn't look up. I didn't look in the trees. And so when it happened, we're on like a ridge, so there's only like so many feet, you know, this way and that way, like 50 feet this way, 50 feet that way. And I'm just trying to figure out how close it is, because it felt like it was like 600 or 800 pounds, you know. I instantly looked at him and I just said, we got to go to the car.
Wow.
So 2 more things happened before we went to the car. I kind of skipped a couple of things, but so I was essentially praying for the fire to come back on. I know it's a really weird story, so but I was praying for the fire to come back on because I know that would help scare stuff off. And then, you know, I told him to bump me if he heard something, and I'd bump him. And I'm glad I said that, because before the big shake, like before that whole thing happened, we heard what sounded like fluttering. It was like I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't a purr, and it was just like, and I tapped him, he tapped me. So I heard the flutter on my side. I know this sounds crazy. I still have no idea what it was. I don't know if it was related to Sasquatch. I don't know, but I tapped him, he tapped me. So he heard the flutter on his side, and I heard this little flutter on my side. And then, like, I don't remember if it was right after, but, like, I just saw the brightest light. And so I'm thinking the fire's back on. And I actually thought it was that guy. I told you there was a guy that came with the LED light, and it was super bright. So I thought this guy was coming back. That's how bright this light was. And then that's whenever that thing, like, shook the ground. And so I told him we got to go to the cart. And so we start to get out of the tent. And, like, the fire is just, like, completely lit up when it was almost totally gone. There was just smoke and ashes. Like, we did not have a lot of time to get any firewood. And so you won't believe me, but I was so scared. Halfway to the car, I realized I didn't even have the keys. He was so mad at me. I
believe you.
I mean, I was so spooked. I don't remember. I thought I was going to die. I don't know how to explain it to you. I knew it wasn't a bear. I couldn't hear anything huffing and puffing. I've been there before, and I knew that something was stalking us. And the craziest part about it, the story's not even over. We go sleep in the car, and I swear on anything, the Lord could drop an ice cream truck on me right now. I'm not lying. I can't lie. I have autism. Like, I literally cannot lie. I didn't go to sleep. Like, there's no way I'm going to sleep after this. I didn't know whether to cry or be excited, and I'm still living in the nightmare. I'm like, I know this was Bigfoot. I already know. And he goes to sleep, and it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I swear on everything holy, I heard whoops. I heard them calling back and forth. And it was the loudest. When people describe the whoops, and I understand, I'm in Red River Gorge. This was in 2017. So nowadays, it's normal to hear humans making calls back and forth. But in 2017, like, Sasquatch Chronicles podcast was barely making any traction, and people weren't whooping out there. And even if they were, if you understand, like, the lung capacity of a human, and you understand, like, when you hear it, you just know it's not a human. It echoed through, like, the whole mountain range. Like, they were talking back and forth, like, miles away from each other. And I woke him up, and I said, I just heard him, listen. And I heard tree knocks too. There was like 2 or 3 whoops back and forth, and then I heard at least 2 tree knocks. And the tree knocks, they kind of sound like sluggers, like at the slugger field, whenever they hit it so hard it, like, echoes. It's like that, and it's very fast. It's like kind of like a woodpecker type speed. It's not like whack, and they wait a couple seconds, whack. It's not like that at all. It's like the power. I don't know how to explain it. It's amazing because it was so loud. It just echoed. It was whack, 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 whack. And it was always like 5, whack, 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 whack. And it just echoed. And he heard it too. And I just was so happy that he heard it too. And then he tried to tell me, this guy was probably messing with me, but he said, I had a dream that there was a Sasquatch, like, looking in your window. And I was like, bro, I haven't even went to sleep yet. You can't be saying that kind of stuff to me.
Yeah.
But it was a crazy encounter, and I don't see that guy a lot, but when I do see him, we give each other a little look, and, like, we just have something that we really can't speak on it. Like, we spoke on it on the way home, and then one other time that week, and now we really can't, because it's like, it doesn't do us any good. It doesn't help, people judging us for something that, I don't really know if it affected me in a good way or not, because I've been out there like 2 or 3 times since then, and I can't sleep in a tent anymore. I tried to sleep in a hammock, and I made it till the dusk hit, and then once the dusk hits, it's like it just gets that quiet feeling, and sometimes you just have to listen to your intuition and to your gut, and you just have to get out of there. You just never really know when something's stalking you. Sometimes you get lucky and you do know. But I really truly feel like that was definitely a Bigfoot. And, after that year, starting that winter and following spring, they just started closing that road, the Chimney Top Road. And now, it's been a few years since I've been back, but they keep that road closed well until spring and summer. And sometimes they say it's just for like winter conditions and I just don't believe it anymore. I think that there's a lot of encounters up there on that ridge.
Wow. What an incredible account. I think guys were definitely being messed with up there. Thank you for sharing. Is it
You're welcome.
Is it possible that I would be able to use this audio in the podcast I have?
Yeah, sure. If you want to, that'd be awesome.
Cool, awesome. Well, thank you for coming up and thank you for sharing. Hi there. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Are you coming up to share a Bigfoot encounter you've had?
Yeah, it's nothing too crazy because this was this past May. I'm in Ohio right now, but I was out in Gunnison County, Colorado, in Black Canyon National Park, and I was with my two buddies, and we were walking up the trail, and this is crazy to say, but we stopped because we thought it was gonna rain. And I look up the trailhead. My buddies are just looking up at the clouds because it's dark gray skies and whatnot. I just look up at the trail, and at least a 7.5 foot tall jet black creature just walks out into the trail, sees me looking at it, and from my spot it was probably like 7,500 yards away, fluidly bends down and hides behind the brush. And I didn't tell my buddies until we got back to the car because it was on the part of the trail where we had to walk back to the car. It felt like an eternity because, just walked out onto the trail, saw me, and fluidly bent down behind the brush.
Were you able to see any of its face at all during that short amount of time?
I was not because I was, 100 yards away. The facial features were too hard to make out, but yeah, definitely 7.5 feet tall, and the shoulders were real broad. But what draws doubt to my mind is that, the color of it, and then when we walked by where it was, there was no distinct smell. Like, you always hear that there's a dead animal smell or, some kind of skunk smell, but didn't have that experience.
You were walking towards that area at the time?
Yeah, we were. And, like I said, when we walked by it, I was just looking dead ahead at the trail, not looking around because I was scared because, saw a 7.5 foot monkey creature just standing in the trail. And when we got back to the car, me and my buddies, I told them, they're like, "You're full of crap." And, I was dead serious, and they were all upset, rightfully so, because, it could easily rip three of us apart.
Definitely. So let's see, 100 yards, that's a few tennis courts away from you. So you could, probably see silhouette features for sure. Did you notice anything about the arms at all as it walked across?
It was walking pretty much on the same path as me, kind of. So, I couldn't really make out any silhouette features because it was, its chest was facing my chest, if that makes sense. I could just tell the width of it and height.
Was there anything else that changed when you saw it, like the sounds of the forest or anything like that?
Not really. It was a really calm experience. I know that's odd to say, but that's just what it was, because it was kind of like a unicorn walked out. It wasn't destructive in any nature. It just saw me, knew we weren't any threat, and then just hid behind the brush. And my guess is it just walked back into the forest.
Absolutely. Have you done any research after that to see if people have had similar things happen in the same area?
I did, yeah. I looked at the BFRO and saw that, I think it was in the late 90s, two hunters had a similar experience in Gunnison County with a, black creature that resembled Bigfoot. But yeah, other than that, no. A couple weeks after we left in May, my buddy sent me something, and some other people in Colorado, I don't know if it was in Gunnison County, but it was somewhat Gunnison County, they had an encounter as well.
Interesting. Well, I appreciate you coming up and sharing what you experienced out there. Is this a conversation I can use in my podcast as well?
For sure, yeah. Do you just post them on your channel, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so sometimes I'll do an episode where there'll be like multiple audio clips in it of people sharing stuff from around the country. So
I gotcha. Awesome. Well, thank you for letting me share.
thank you. I appreciate you coming up.
Yep. Have a good one, sir.
Tate, we were actually just talking a few minutes about Dr. Meldrum earlier. Do you have any stories you can share about spending time with Dr. Meldrum? Is that something you could do? I don't want to put you on the spot, and I don't know if you're still here, but he's here.
Hey,
Hey, dude, how's it going?
good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
All right. I got a new phone case, and it's like waterproof, so I didn't know if my voice was coming in, so.
Yeah, you sound good. So, yeah, putting you on the spot, but do you have any? I know you were able to spend at least 1 day with Dr. Meldrum, right? Visited his office.
Yeah. Well, I met him at the 50th anniversary for the PG film a few years back. That's where I first got to meet him. And so he was really cool. I got to get his autograph. I got a picture with, well, actually photobombed a picture with Meldrum, Cliff Barackman, Bobo, and Bob Gimlin. And it's that's a pretty funny photobomb. So I look back on that pretty fondly. And then in 2022, Ron Reed from Trailing Giants, Jonathan Easley of Western Bigfoot Exploration, and myself. We're gonna film with Meldrum in his lab at over in Idaho, where he's at in Pocatello. And we were like keeping in touch, trying to plan it. And he's like, "Oh, I probably have like an hour before I have to go because I'm going on a trip." And so we planned on just doing like an hour. We got to his lab, and he ended up giving us more than like 2 hours. Like he gave us way more time and everything. And he's such a nice guy, and so he was super kind and very knowledgeable, and like he's definitely an inspiration to try and be a better researcher in the field. And so I think Meldrum is going to hopefully inspire a lot of people to come. And I think it's far too soon that he passed, and so he'll be missed for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Extremely too soon for sure. Did he show you anything cool in his from his collection?
Yeah, we got to see some stuff. It was more like just kind of I can't even begin where to describe what to describe it was like there. There was like casts and handprints there, and he was like showing us some of those that he casted. I think he showed us the one he casted, and he showed us some other original ones too that was really cool to see. And just kind of just pick his brain a little bit about different things was awesome.
Absolutely. And that's in one of your documentary episodes, right?
Yeah, that's I think it's the third or fourth episode of the Sabe series on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, so guys, if you want to check that out, you just look up Sasquatch and search for Sabe on YouTube or the Hieronymus YouTube channel. And it's either episode 3 or 4 where they visit Dr. Meldrum's office. So thank you, man, for coming up and for sharing real quick. I appreciate it. Hey there.
Right on. Don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Sound great. How's it going?
Oh, good, good. I got a story that happened recently. This is in the middle of the United States, near the Mississippi, Missouri River, metropolitan area, kind of on the edge of the area, but it's at a nursery. A guy was going to check on some pigs. We had a snowstorm, about 7 inches of snow, so he was going out like at 5 o'clock in the morning to check on his pigs at his nursery. He gets out there as the sun's rising, and as he gets there, he notices that there's footsteps coming from the direction of the river, and they're super spaced out, three or four toes on the footprints. They're huge footprints. They go all the way into where he's going to where the pigs are. He gets back there, and there's like six juvenile pigs, but they were still pretty good sized, about 60 to 70 pounds each, and they were all gutted. They had like a circular hole in their abdomen, and they were completely gutted. And he realized that the footprints went in, but they didn't go back out. So he freaked out and got out of there as fast as he could. This guy, the young man that told me this, is about 30 years old, and I was checking out a car that he was selling. That's how I met the person. But I told him he was in an area where there had been a lot of Bigfoot sightings, and he told me that story. But I think people need to realize that these things are really out there. And I saw the evidence of the pictures of the footprints, and I know he wasn't making this up.
Missouri
Yes,
River,
sir.
Midwest, that could be, that goes
Yes,
for
sir.
quite a while, but yeah, something to keep in mind. But
Yeah,
thank you
it's
so
where the
much, John.
Missouri. Yes, sir. It's where the Missouri and the Mississippi where they meet is where we're talking about. We're talking about on the edge of the metropolitan area there. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because I think everybody needs to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for
Yep.
coming up, man.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Welcome to share. Yep. Thank you.
Hi there. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. What brings you up?
Well, this happened almost 40 years ago. I was with my dad, and this was in just northwest of Kansas City, Missouri, out in the county. And we lived out in the county off a gravel road. To get home, we had to go over a little low water bridge. And one night, me and my dad, it was night, we were driving home, it was raining. We rounded an S curve coming to the low water bridge, and in the middle of the road was, my dad called it a beast, but when it stood up, it was maybe 6 feet tall. I'm assuming a juvenile. But when we seen this, it was on all fours, but then it stood up on its hind legs and looked at us, and this is 15 to 20 feet in front of us. And then it just took off, like 3-4 steps. It was across the road and into the woods. And at the time, Dad didn't think anything about Bigfoot or anything like that. And back then, if that's what you thought it was, you really didn't say anything. Well, a few months later, there was a cargo plane that had crashed less than a mile behind the house. And my dad went running through the woods and the creeks to go down to see if he could help anyone. And long story short, he become overcome with emotion and had stepped back in the woods. And he said he had leaned against a tree because he was crying, which isn't like my dad. And he heard a footstep. And when he looked up, he said that this thing was, Dad was 6'4", 350 pounds. And he said he felt dwarfed by this thing. And it was just standing there like 2 feet from him, just looking at him. And Dad said he was still crying, and when he looked this thing in the eye, he said he would swear it had a tear come down. And about that time, one of the firefighters hollered something, and Dad turned around and looked at him. Then he turned back to where this thing was standing, and it turned around to walk away. And when it did, he said he counted 12 to 15 others that was in similar size all turn and walk back in through the woods. And Dad, we lost him a little over 5 years ago. He didn't open up with me and had these discussions on this until about 10 years ago. And he remembered everything. And strangely, I was about 6 years old. And yet my dad described everything that I remembered about the juvenile that we saw. And he went into the details of what occurred in the woods. And after that night, there would be 2 or 3 times a week when we'd come out of the house in the morning, there would be a boulder on our front porch that would weigh 20 to 30 pounds. And there got to be so many of them that would show up that my dad actually built a flower bed out of these boulders because he felt that whatever these were bringing them up as a gift and he wanted to be respectful. So he built a flower bed out of them. But I just kind of wanted to know your thoughts on that.
So first off, gifting thing, yes, I hear that all the time. Usually it's a lot weirder than that. So totally on board with that. The sighting your dad had, was that also north of Kansas City, Missouri?
Yes. Where this plane went down was maybe 100 yards from where he and I had seen the juvenile like 2 or 3 months before the plane crash.
Gotcha. And is this, I'm trying to think of like stuff north of Kansas City and Missouri, and the one that really comes to mind is an area called Monkey Mountain up there. Have you ever heard of that?
I have. This isn't up there. Are you familiar with the area?
A little bit. I mean, I live up in central Iowa, but I'm not overly familiar with the city.
Because if you take 152 west and you're almost to the end of 152 and you come to Hampton Road, if you get off on Hampton and turn right, that takes you down to the low water bridge and where this all took place.
Okay. That's extremely interesting. I mean, and his story is super unique because seeing so many together at once, I've really never heard many accounts that are like that. Were you able to get his story recorded, or is it just your memories that you have of him telling you?
No, just my memories. He didn't want to go that far because he still felt that people would ridicule him for talking about that.
Wow. What an incredible account, though. I mean, it's not the most wild thing I've ever heard. So, yeah, I mean, it's also
have
interesting.
Have you heard of a man named Randy Harrington?
Yeah, Randy Harrington's a good guy. I've talked to him before. Yeah.
Say, I talked to him. I met him through a friend, and he wants to go to the area to do an investigation. So I will likely be joining up with him, going back to the area and seeing what we can find.
No, I think that would be a great idea. Randy's a really good guy, so I would totally recommend that. That would be a cool investigation for sure. So do you have your own investigation group then?
We do. We've done a couple. Um, I actually run a search and recovery team for missing people, but some of my team members have had experiences as well. And one of my team members is a regional director for MUFON.
Okay.
So we're going to team up and do some investigations on some different things.
Wow, that sounds extremely cool. Yeah, thank you so much for coming up and for sharing your father's story. Is this a conversation I can put on my Bigfoot podcast?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming up, sir.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.